Homelander is not a character, he is a consequence. An inevitable outcome born in a world where power is granted not through love, but through test tubes. It is impossible to understand Homelander without understanding the universe of The Boys, because this world is not the story of superheroes, but of a system where morality itself can be marketed. Vought is not merely a corporation, it is the God production line of the modern age, where goodness is not measured but sold, heroism is not lived but advertised, and conscience is not a reflex but a crisis management tool. Homelander is designed as the most flawless product of this order, an icon wrapped in the American flag, a figure who learned how to smile but never learned how to feel. The smile on his face is not an emotion but a duty, because in this world even emotions belong not to the individual, but to the brand. In The Boys universe, people are not saved, perceptions are, and Homelander stands at the peak of that illusion until he is forced to confront the one thing that cannot be controlled, his repressed self. Homelander's tragedy is not that he had a bad childhood. His true tragedy is that he never had a childhood at all. He did not grow up in a home. He was developed in a laboratory. In psychoanalysis, it is well known that the self is formed through the first bond, through touch, affection, and mirroring. That bond was never established for Homelander. No one held him. No one even expected him to be soothed when he cried. He was only observed, measured, and recorded. As a result, people in his mind fall into two categories: observers and threats. Love does not exist in his vocabulary. In its place stands an addiction to approval. Applause becomes a synthetic substitute for love, but applause never satisfies. It only demands more. Homelander's rage is born precisely here, because the emptiness inside him can be filled neither by power nor by admiration. And when a human being lives with such a void, they either collapse or become a tyrant and burn everything around them. Most people label Homelander as a narcissist, but that is an incomplete diagnosis. Narcissism is not self-confidence, it is the armor of a fragile self. In Freud's formulation, the narcissistic structure is an inflated defense designed to prevent collapse. Homelander does not love himself, he fears losing himself. That is why the smallest criticism feels like a threat, the slightest disobedience drives him into rage, and the consequences of that rage are devastating, because he is the most powerful figure in his universe, a dark irony echoing Superman's shadow. For Homelander, someone not fearing him is experienced almost as a physical attack, because a person who does not fear him sees him as human. And being human, in Homelander's unconscious, is synonymous with weakness. In his world, weakness means death. Homelander's tragedy does not lie in his power, but in how that power is perceived. He is not merely a being who can fly, destroy, or bring cities to their knees with a single glance. His real concern is whether all of this is witnessed and validated. For Homelander, power is not completed through action, but through the gaze of others. A miracle no one sees has never truly happened in his world. At this point, reading Homelander as a classic bully or tyrant becomes insufficient, because he is not addicted to exercising power, but to having that power accepted. A victory without applause is, to him, a defeat. A god who is not loved is a fallen god. This is why Homelander's rage is often directed not at his enemies, but at his admirers, because admiration is fragile, and everything fragile carries the potential of threat. Here, Homelander's psychology is caught between a religious figure and a modern celebrity. He wants to be worshipped, yet he also wants ratings. He wants to be sacred, yet he wants to stay relevant. This duality creates a constant tension in his mind. Gods are not questioned. Celebrities are judged every day. Homelander is forced to be both at once. Jean-Paul Sartre's words find their meaning here. Hell is other people. For Homelander, this sentence is not metaphorical but structural. The gaze of others constructs his existence, yet at the same time suffocates it, because every look carries the possibility of rejection. Every silence can be proof of being unloved. That is why Homelander is never truly calm. Even when he smiles, his mind is working. Do they still love me? At this point, Homelander's violence is not sadism. It is anxiety over control. Violence is a message to him. You cannot abandon me. Love is risky because it is voluntary. Fear, on the other hand, is guaranteed. Machiavelli's famous dilemma appears here. Is it better to be loved or feared? Homelander does not answer this question theoretically, but instinctively. He wants to be loved. He is forced to settle for being feared. When it comes to power, Homelander's philosophy is fully revealed. Power is not a tool for him. It is existence itself. He derives his entire sense of self and superiority from the effect his power has. Nietzsche's often misunderstood concept of the Übermensch becomes a caricature here, because the Übermensch is not the one who merely possesses power, but the one who can create his own values. Homelander cannot create values. He can only crush, shatter, and destroy what already exists. Morality requires limits, and limits are precisely what Homelander cannot tolerate. When no one can stop you, conscience becomes a burden. And this is why Homelander is less evil than he is amoral. Evil still operates within a framework. Amorality is limitless, and for that very reason, it is far more dangerous and impossible to contain. At the center of Homelander's inner conflict lies the desire to be loved, but he cannot ask for love. He can only produce fear. When Machiavelli said, "It is safer to be feared than loved," he was speaking of a ruler, not a child. For a child, fear is not security. It is psychological decay. Homelander spreads fear because he has no other language with which to form bonds. Yet fear does not generate loyalty. It only creates postponed rebellion. And Homelander knows this instinctively. That is why he constantly shouts, demands more control, and hardens himself further. Because he senses that the moment control slips away, the only thing left will be absolute loneliness. At this point, the God complex comes into play. Homelander wants to be a god, because gods are never abandoned. But as Sartre argued, human beings are condemned to create meaning, and Homelander was never given that chance. A ready-made identity was imposed on him. If he steps outside of it, nothing will remain. This is what truly makes Homelander terrifying. Not because he is a monster, but because he is completely empty inside. An emptiness filled with power is one of the most destructive forces in existence. Homelander tells us this: when power is not born from love, it turns into tyranny. And sometimes the most dangerous beings are not those who are evil, but those who never became human at all. Homelander is not an enemy. He is a warning. If you feed a society with applause, fear, and false icons, that society will inevitably create its own Homelander.